My friends, this video is going to give me a lot of hate, but I hope it at least sparks a thoughtful discussion and we can have something that's realistic here and helpful for everyone, make us all better drivers. Okay, but real quick, just hit my best ever MPG on my Mazda CX-50 2023, hit 25.5 miles per gallon. Don't rely on the actual MPG readout that your car tells you because that's not going to be accurate. You want to use an app like Fuely, which I've been using for probably like 15 years now. It's totally free, no affiliation, and you just put in your mileage and the number of gallons you filled up, and it'll tell you your MPG. And if you put in the cost, it'll also tell you your cost per mile, yada, yada, yada. I've done that for all the cars I've owned since like 2010, 2012, and I've logged every single fuel up, or almost every single fuel up, and it's valuable information. So, what I want to talk about today is overtaking behavior on highways and human biases. Because I think a lot of us, everyone thinks they're a great driver. If everyone thinks they're an above average driver, yet there's only an average, you can't have everyone be above average, obviously. So something doesn't quite add up. And I think a lot of people on the roads, especially on the highways, do a lot of things incorrectly that I want to discuss today. And no, this is not just a matter of going to the right if you're not overtaking, because that is important, but we're going to get to that shortly. So, what I want to start with is by saying that since college, since 2009, I got sick with inflammatory bowel disease, and I drove to and from the Bay Area once every 2 weeks, sometimes once every week, back and forth. 4 to 5 hours, the I-5. I've done a lot of two-way highways, a lot. I've literally done that road over 100 times, probably hundreds of times. And same thing in Vegas, drove to and from the Bay Area during COVID. So many times I put on 35,000 miles on my car in 1 year, mostly from just driving from Vegas to SoCal or NorCal. Let me sip Topo Chico. All right, so what I want to discuss today is why so many people, myself included, find themselves frustrated on the highway. And what you would say is, well, if everyone just went to the right as soon as they passed a vehicle, we'd be fine. I tried that. I tried that for a long time. I was that weird kid that read the DMV handbook. Maybe not cover to cover, but almost cover to cover. I read that shit because I know it's weird to say that, but the reason I say it is because I've been one of those people since I was a kid that has always believed there was a right way and a wrong way to do most things in life. And you're going to find exceptions, art, music, etc., etc. There's times when you want to break the rules, so to speak. But for most things in life, there's a right way, there's a wrong way. When I was training in plastic surgery, there was a right way to suture and close wounds and approximate the wound edges to minimize scar healing, and there was a wrong way. There's a right way to treat a patient in a hospital and a wrong way. There's a right way to drive, there's a wrong way to drive. So I read the handbook, and I held myself to a very high standard. And it was only, I was naive, I was 16 years old, didn't know shit. Thought that everyone read the handbook and read things. Oh, I was such a sweet summer child. So innocent. And now I realize most people don't give a flying fuck about the road rules and are going to do whatever they can and want to do as long as they're not going to get in trouble, or at least have a low risk of getting in trouble. Okay? So, ideally, yes, we would always move to the right as soon as we're done overtaking, because roads move so much better. There's so much less traffic and inefficiency and less frustration. But unfortunately, people don't do that. Okay. But I should still do that, right? That's what I thought. So I did that for years. Again, going back to this college time, going back and forth, I would always go to the right and then only go to the left when I wanted to overtake, because I do things by the fucking book. And you know what happened? I'd be in this lane, pretend this was only 2 lanes, and let's say I'm coming up on a slow vehicle, and I want to turn left and overtake, and this guy behind me would accelerate to block me, so I'd have to brake, get behind him, and then getting behind him, he's now going slower than he was when he was trying to get ahead of me to make sure I didn't actually go into that lane. And you'll see this behavior. Unfortunately, when you anonymize an individual, they tend to be a little bit selfish and they like to abuse their power. There's this really interesting study think it was done in Costco parking lots, where they timed how long it took someone to get in their car and reverse out of a parking spot when someone was waiting in another vehicle behind them to take that spot, or when someone was not waiting. So whether or not there was someone there waiting for that spot actually influenced how long it took. You know what happened? When there was someone else waiting, the individual in the car took longer to get out of the spot, because they're like, oh yeah, let me do my double safety check, let me check my mirrors, let me, text my mom real quick, let me do this, let me do that before I start driving. Because they're in this position of power where this other person needs to wait for them, and they indulge themselves in that little bit of abuse of power. It's not a terrible abuse of power, but when humans get power, it's not uncommon for it to corrupt us even in the slightest of ways. So, you see that on the road, because now we're all anonymous. And if I knew that this was Jimmy, my next door neighbor, and he knew that I was right behind him, he'd probably behave a little bit differently versus when he feels like he's completely anonymous. Correct? So what you'll see is, number one, the anonymous factor, and number two, biases and this inability to self-reflect. I do consider myself pretty self-reflective. I'm not some Zen monk. I'm not saying that. I have a lot to improve on, a lot of faults, a lot of issues, as we all do. But when you compare me to maybe the average American, it's like a sentient being versus a f***ing tree shrub or something. Because the average American, I kid you not, man, I'm so jealous of those who are in Germany, where they have really strict driving standards to get your license. Because, okay, here in America, a lot of people don't know this, so I'm going to share some things with you that are just human nature. And part of this is going to be from doing your own research, part of this is going to be self-reflecting and just observing these things in yourself and talking to other people to corroborate it. What you care a lot about when you're on the road is relative speed. You don't care if you're going 80, 85, 60. What you care more about is the relative speed of other vehicles around you. When you're in a traffic jam, watch yourself. Do you feel more uncomfortable that you're going 20 miles an hour? Or do you feel more uncomfortable that maybe that lane over there is going a little bit faster and you gotta move? Another way of examining this, do you feel better? Does it reduce the anxiety, the stress, the discomfort when you're going in the really fast lane in the carpool lane, 40 miles an hour in rush hour traffic when everyone else is standstill? You probably feel like you're flying through. It's all relative. Ideally, you'd like to be going 70, but you're not really stressing about going 40 because everyone else is going super slow, and now relatively, you're going much faster. Observe that in yourself. Now, the other thing happens, that same relative thing happens on the highway, on a 2-lane highway. Now, right now we're 3 lanes, it's gonna get to 2 lanes shortly. Same thing's gonna happen here. I drive on roads like this on cruise control, but ever since, even before I was using cruise control, every few seconds I look at my speedometer, which I know some people don't do. I do it. It doesn't bother me, it's just a habit I've had since I started driving. And I think it's a helpful habit, because what a lot of people do is they think they want to go faster than that car right up there. So they're gonna speed up. I'm gonna get in front of him. I'm gonna go 85, I'm going 88, I'm going 90. They get in front, and then bam, all of a sudden they no longer have this urge, this primal instinct, oh, I need to get in front, oh, I gotta go faster. Now they can go at their pace, there's no car in front of them, they can go at their nice, easy 72. I know the car behind them that was going 78 before, they're like, what the f***? This guy just came in front of me and slowed down. This happens all the f***ing time. There was a red V-dub earlier today. That exact shit happened. I'm cruising on 80. He's passing me. And generally, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do camp in the left lane when a lot of this shit is happening. When I go to the right, and then someone blocks me, and now I need to brake and get behind someone who's slower and now overtake them, it gets really old. The 132nd time that it happens. So, anyways, this V-dub overtakes me, and I'm cruising at 80. Then I use this radar-guided cruise control. All of a sudden I'm going 76. What's going on? And then I have to overtake the guy, and then he wants to overtake me again. And I've gone to these like back and forths that are so ridiculous, so silly. Same thing with this blue Jeep earlier. Same thing with this other, I think it was a Honda Civic as well. Three different cars in literally less than 45 minutes. This is all happening. Defensive driving. All right. Should have done that a little bit sooner, but I caught it. And we resume. And I think a big part of the issue here is that people are going largely based on emotions, how they feel, rather than numbers, the data. We all want to go as fast as we can. Buddy, that's not necessary. If I'm going faster than this guy, you will have your opportunity to overtake. If I'm camping next to next, that's an issue, but that kind of behavior, not necessary when I'm already going faster. If I'm going faster than the person to the lane to the right of me, I'm doing nothing wrong, all right? Some people don't get that. Anyways, people are all relative. So going uphill, everyone slows down. I get it, your engine needs to work harder. You need to push harder into the throttle. But guess what? Going uphill, you can carry the same speed. That's okay. If we're trying to go to where we want to be as fast as possible without getting a ticket and doing so safely, you can go the same speed uphill. And if you want to slow down, go to the right. Conversely, going downhill, people go a lot faster because they're just not aware of their speed. This is all relative. It's all based on effort and emotion, not based on the actual data in front of you, the speedometer. And when they're going downhill, what they don't realize is that going downhill, going faster with this momentum, it's now a lot harder for you to stop. Do you see people going downhill having more distance? No. Do you see people understanding that it's a lot riskier to be bombing things downhill? No. So what's funny is that when I'm going on these, again, I try to do cruise control, and like right now, we're going down, and you're gonna see people zoom ahead of me. I'm gonna maintain the same speed because I understand if I'm going a lot faster downhill, first of all, my risk of getting a ticket is much higher. And secondly, if something happens and I need to take evasive maneuver, then I'm worse off bombing downhill at 90 miles an hour versus going 80 or 82. The other really frustrating one on, especially 2-lane highways, it feels narrow. And when you have a big rig on the right, you'll notice people drive faster until they approach the vehicle because now there's like this large delta in speed and that makes them feel uncomfortable. Subconsciously at least, they don't like that. So then they'll slow down by 5, 10, 15 miles an hour and barely crawl ahead of it. And then you're like, okay, once we get past this big rig, I'm gonna overtake them because they're driving at like 70 and I wanna be driving at 80. But then as soon as you guys pass the big rig, then they start speeding up to 80 themselves. And you're like, oh my God, what's going on? And they'll just keep yo-yoing with the speed because they want to slow down when they're passing the big rig, not understanding their own bias, their own limitation, their own illogical fallacies when it comes to driving. And here, the right lane is totally clear, so I'm tempted to go there, but that's not safe, and I want to be going 80. So instead, we go here because we got these two guys that want to just go the same speed. Nice. So the reason this video is going to get me a lot of hate is because, yeah, there are times when I camp in the left. I'm going at a reasonable speed, I feel, 80 and a 70, etc., etc. And I'll do that sometimes on these 2-lane roads when you have a lot of irrational, illogical behavior. When you can afford to do so, you should do it. But then it's tragedy of the commons where there's this shared resource, which in this case is driving on this highway, getting from point A to point B, and people's own selfish desire that inconveniences others, that detracts from the utility of this shared good, is tainted because of our selfish desire. So I used to be like, hey, let's always go to the right, and I used to be such a stickler for that because, again, I believe that in life there's the right way and a wrong way to do most things. But eventually, after being burned time and time again, and having these frustrating seesaws where I overtake, dude, I'm cruising at 80, and this guy wants to overtake me, 85, 90, boom, and then he slows me down. That happened with the Civic earlier, where the Civic, I was on cruise at 82, keeping up with them. They didn't want me to overtake. I gunned it, had to go to 90 to overtake them, and then as soon as I went back to my cruise of 80, then boom, they're gone. They're way far behind me because I'm going much faster than them once they get to their appropriate speed. But it's all relative. They don't want that person to overtake. Oh no, don't overtake me, I'm gonna accelerate. And that's the behavior that we need to be avoiding. So, I guess the point of this video is to start a discussion about this topic because it's a hotly debated topic. And yeah, I think that if we all just followed the rules, if we were more like Germany, or we actually had standards to get a driver's license and it wasn't such a f***ing joke, even in Vegas, the number of times, I've taken a protected left turn, meaning I have a green arrow, I can do a U-turn, and the sign also says, U-turn allowed. But people, who are here trying to turn right into the same place that I'm going, will honk at me when I'm doing my U-turn. Bro, I have the right of way. We need to actually enforce instruction for, and proper testing to get a license because driving is a privilege, it's not a right. And I hope that you guys find ways to navigate these crazy roads where a lot of people drive in a completely illogical, irrational way. And sometimes, gotta camp at the left and to keep someone from doing nonsensical shit, like some of the cars earlier today. Anyway, my friends, let me know what you think with a comment down below. Much love. Subscribe if you haven't already. See you all in the next one.